Welcome back to Truck Tech, everyone. This week, we're going to talk about electric buses and we're going to talk about batteries. And we're going to talk about both of those with Gareth Joyce. Gareth is the CEO of Proterra Incorporated. It is a company that has been around for quite a few years, although often is lumped in with newer companies, sort of growing companies, but really a lot more to that. In a tough market, Proterra is trying to conserve cash while bringing its new Proterra powered plant in Greer, South Carolina online. We'll talk to Garth about that after these headlines. We don't talk a lot about Toyota here on Truck Tech simply because they don't do that much in the commercial vehicle space. Other than a heavy-duty fuel cell operation in Kentucky that goes online later this year that will supply PACCAR, Kenworth, and Peterbilt, we don't get into them. But they announced something that is significant, and that is its attempt and plans for producing solid-state batteries by 2027. Solid-state batteries would allow for a single charge range of up to 600 miles on just one charge. That is a game changer in terms of what can be done. Tesla today can give you about 530 miles on a single charge. This doesn't have an immediate impact in trucking, but it could over time, where the longest range really for an electric truck before recharging today is maybe 250 to 300 miles. So let's stay tuned with that. We'll see what Toyota has up in planning for commercial trucks with that, as well as with the fuel cell space. Another company we don't talk a lot about is Mullen Automotive. Interesting here that the company, which is really a roll-up of a lot of other companies that tried to make it in the medium-duty space, is now planning to do a lightweight truck body for its Class 3, literally called the 3 truck, and it will be working with Phoenix. That's Phenix, not the city in Arizona, one of California's largest providers of work trucks and equipment, and especially truck bodies, to bring this to market. There are pre-production models available for testing now. I guess if you contact Mullen, they can work with you on that. Lastly, check out my story this week on Lightning E-Motors, which we had an opportunity to catch up with Tim Reeser last week over in Detroit, and a longer piece for me, really, but something that gets into sort of the full picture of what's happening with this company that is trying to create a niche out of small school buses and also, airport shuttle vans and things like that. Tim is optimistic about the business despite some hard times financially. It's another company, not so unlike Proterra that we're talking to you today, that has been around since the 2000s, but really only became popular after it decided to go public via a SPAC merger. So we'll have Tim as a guest on the show here on June 28th, so you'll get to see a little more of him, but recommend that story to you today. In all humility, please. I recommend that. Now, let's welcome Gareth Joyce, the CEO of Proterra. Gareth did his first interview during a FreightWaves event back in, I think, January of 2022, right after you became the CEO of the company. Gareth, it is great to have you. I guess very quickly, Proterra has been around since 2004, and you were mostly known for building transit buses, electric transit buses. More recently, you've been a supplier of batteries to some heavy-duty companies, startups like Nikola, and also Volta Trucks. You're working with Daimler Truck North America and the Thomas Built Bus Group to create battery packs for those buses as well. So now, I guess, really the Proterra Power Unit, which focuses on making battery packs for a range of businesses, is sort of the focus. And you joined the company from Delta Airlines back in 2020, where you were the first chief sustainability officer at the airline at Delta. So it's great to have you. Good to see you again. It's been a little while, but I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Alan, well, thank you for having me on the show today, and it's nice to be back with you.
Yeah, I neglected to mention that you had a nice honor, and I guess some work that came your way from President Biden back in February when you were named to the President's Export Council. This is, I guess, the principal National Advisory Council on International Trade. That's a big one for you, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real privilege to be a part of that. And also to be playing an important role in helping develop our economy here in the US beyond just the work we're doing in our own company. I'm very privileged to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's so much to talk about in this space, and we spend a great deal of time writing about it, talking to folks like yourself. And I guess I just want to jump in. Your company continues to get really positive reviews on the product side. I've talked to Daimler, I've talked to Lightning E-Motors, I mentioned a moment ago, and both of them are big fans of the work that you do. I guess it's kind of a philosophical question to start with. How does a good reputation like that for product translate to business results, or is there a connection that you see?
Yeah, of course, there's a connection for sure. I think building a strong brand requires a number of things. One, you've got to have leading products and technologies, which I believe we have in our Proterra powered product. But two, you've also got to have a reputation for reliability, and that's not just in the product itself, but also in producing the product. So one of the big transformative moments for us as a company, as we've shifted from a startup towards a scaling organization, is investing in our manufacturing capacity and our supply chain capacity in order to be able to produce hundreds or thousands of a particular product for a particular customer. Like you mentioned, Daimler Trucks North America, who's a great customer of ours. We deliver our batteries for their Freightliner custom chassis product, as well as their Thomas-built school buses. And so when you have demand in the market like we see for the school buses, where parents are really proud to be putting their children on clean school buses, they're depending on us to be able to produce batteries for a production line for a year plus, to put those vehicles in the school districts and run every day.
I guess, you raise a really important point there, and it often goes unsaid, and that is that this really is about cleaning up the environment. And when you think about the kids getting on a bus that doesn't have emissions and doesn't, spew out anything out the back end, that really is a big deal. It's interesting to me, Gareth, that we're starting to see now the automotive and the commercial vehicle industry moving towards a little bit different chemistry, lithium iron phosphate, which of course is a lithium ion battery, but a little different chemistry than nickel, metal, cobalt. I'm wondering how you see the role of LPF or at Proterra, and if you see a role for it.
Well, there are different chemistries out there, as you mentioned, and you may have noted that we have made an investment in an LFP company that is US based. We think that LFP definitely has a place. It is a chemistry that would work for certain product applications. But at this point, our prime path is a nickel-based chemistry. We are producing batteries for commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles need high energy density because it's a working product that needs you to not take away from carrying capacity. It's a revenue generating asset. And so our nickel-based chemistries allow us to deliver industry-leading energy density on a very safe platform. And we still believe that that's really where the sweet spot of the commercial vehicle market is. You mentioned the clean school buses. We're a mission-driven company. And when you consider that the medium and heavy-duty trucks and buses are only about 5% of the vehicles on the road in North America, they account for about 25% of the emissions. So for us, we like the idea of having an outsized impact on the communities we live in by delivering batteries for these commercial vehicle operators. And as I said, our nickel-based chemistries today in the cylindrical format help us to do that very successfully. And we continue to lead the industry, we believe.
Are you concerned at all about availability of both nickel and cobalt and some of these rare earth materials that honestly we don't have a great supply chain, in the U.S. for at this point? Are you concerned about availability over time?
Well, first of all, we're very excited about the relationship we have with LG. As you noted, LG has made an investment to build a facility in Arizona, which will produce cylindrical cells in the format that we use. And so that's a really valuable investment in the US economy, but we're kind of seeing more of this happening through the Inflation Reduction Act, where that has helped to ensure that the supply chain, all the way from tier one, tier two, right through to raw material sourcing, is going to get developed as this transformation towards battery powered commercial vehicles and passenger cars continues to accelerate in the decades that lie ahead of us.
I'm sure you have a number of test cells and are looking at different chemistries. What else out there looks good right now or looks promising in the chemistry space? And again, we're not talking to a chemical audience, but I'm just curious what else is out there that interests you in the development.
Yeah, product development is a very important piece of our strategy. We have our current production technologies, which are helping us deliver the products that we are already today, which are leading the industry, as I mentioned. We find them in products, like you said, the Lightning E-Motors product is one example, but also the Daimler Trucks products, the Shift Blue Arc, etc. We obviously also need to continue to invest in the future and make sure that we're helping to drive energy density up, but also cost down at the same time as this industry matures. Some of that will come through cell technology, and we continue to test, as you said, in our labs, a variety of different cells to make sure that we're ready to move to next generation technology as it matures and is ready to give us the performance we need, but most importantly, with the safety and reliability.
One of the things that I'm sure you noticed the announcement from Toyota about producing solid state batteries in 2027. Now, that's largely a passenger vehicle announcement, I think, but I mentioned in the headlines portion at the top that it's something that could, in fact, affect trucks eventually. And we know that QuantumScape and others have talked about solid state batteries. Is this something that is exciting to you? And is it something that you could see, in your future as well? Perhaps, obviously not making them, but maybe having them.
Yeah, we as I mentioned, continue to monitor cell technologies on a continuous basis. Solid state is clearly a technology that we would like to see develop and evolve. As far as we are concerned today, we're producing batteries right now. We've got nearly 1,800 vehicle sets of batteries out there through our Proterra powered product, plus more than 1,000 of our own transit buses out there in the market. And they have to rely on current state technologies. Solid state is very much something that could influence the future of cell technology, and we'll continue to observe it. But for the moment, we're very comfortable with the nickel-based chemistries that we're using because it's giving us an industry-leading product already.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Transit buses would seem to be in great shape right now with the federal incentives under the IRA and some of the state incentives such as HVIP out in California. How's Proterra working with your customers to take advantage of incentives, even though eventually they're going to phase out because, once the regulations take effect, it's hard to get an incentive for something that's regulated.
Well, you're right. I mean, these incentives have been, in many ways, just a shot in the arm for the transformation of the commercial vehicle sector towards battery electric powertrains. The Infrastructure Act was fundamentally important to help accelerate the adoption of battery-powered transit buses because transit authorities were able to look ahead for multiple years. In this case, 5 years out, they know that there's going to be federal funding as they look to transform their fleets, not just try one or two products. So that was really, as I said, a shot in the arm. And then add to that the additional acceleration that came through the Inflation Reduction Act, where you have demand-side incentives. So there's money available to incentivize the purchase of battery electric commercial vehicles. But in addition to that, you've got the supply-side incentives that are helping develop the supply chain. The $45 a kilowatt hour tax incentive for battery and module production, we think is really essential to shore up the foundation of supply for decades to come. We at Proterra believe that we would qualify for the module production credit of $10 a kilowatt hour. And that is essential to help us continue to invest in our business and add to our position of leadership already and help us grow into the future.
Yeah, well, I know that everybody I talk to, talks about incentives. We just wrote the other week, though, that they're not here forever. So, especially on the clean truck side in California, they'll phase out over time as regulation comes in, and of course, the fleets that are out ahead of that can continue to collect incentives on that side. But there are, I think I understand, 650 different incentive programs out there in the country. If you talk state and federal, and of course, I think you may have referenced the EPA a moment ago. I'm not sure. Let me switch gears once again, Gareth, and talk to you about the Proterra One facility down in Greer, South Carolina. How is that progressing, and how are the milestones coming in terms of your consolidation down there?
We are extremely excited about our Powered One facility in Greer. It was another step forward in our journey. We started production in January. In March, we doubled the production output of January. In April, our production was up another 15% on the March number, and we're extremely excited to be commissioning our second line as we speak in Greer. So we're really, really enthusiastic about the ramp and the position it puts us in to continue to supply batteries to our customers as this transformation takes place. You mentioned the EPA funding. One great example of putting these vehicles on the road is the South Carolina School District just recently ordered 160 of the Thomas-built Julie school buses, which are powered by our batteries. That's the largest order of battery electric school buses in the country so far. So when you kind of look at the impact that we're having, as I said, it's super exciting to have our facility up and ramping to be able to meet the demand, because there's not a parent I know out there that's not enthusiastic to walk their child to the sidewalk and put their child onto a school bus that is powered by a clean powertrain, no emissions, no noise.
Right. It's funny you mentioned South Carolina, because of course Freightliner Custom Chassis, which I think you supply to the MT E50. I'll get it right eventually, MT50, but the electric version, right? You supply to that. You also, of course, we've talked about the school buses, and I wasn't aware of that large order. I think, it wasn't too long ago that Thomas Built and yourselves were celebrating 50 electric school buses. So, to see that kind of order, knowing though that there is a lot of money out there to help get, is it 480 or 500,000 school buses converted? Again, not a freight story for us, but definitely one that matters in this electrification space. Let me ask you, as far as I do this with all my guests. You are not a startup, right? We agree on that. 2004 was not yesterday, but I do have I guess you get to the tougher questions, and concerns about your cash burn and underachieving on revenue targets seem kind of hard to shake for you. What do you need to do to instill the confidence in your customers that you, Proterra, will make it through the present kind of financial difficulties right now?
Yeah, as we mentioned on our quarterly earnings call at the end of the first quarter, we are actively seeking to raise capital. Our balance sheet is really important to us, and we recognize the value of a strong balance sheet. It has empowered us so far to make the kind of investments we've made, like building our state-of-the-art facility in Greer, South Carolina. But in addition to that, for example, securing our supply agreement with LG, that's helped LG to bring a commitment to the US in their Arizona facility to produce cells. So a strong balance sheet, we see the value in it, and we recognize the need to continue to invest in that. And so, as mentioned, we're busy with the process of seeking to raise capital, and we have a number of strategic options that we're exploring.
Yeah, it's interesting when Jack Allen was in your role, he said to me on one of our broadcasts, he said, we did the SPAC merger because we wanted to get attention for some businesses that we weren't known for, like Proterra Powered, principally, is what he was talking about. And I realized that you were at the company, but really weren't making the decisions at that time. When you look back at the SPAC, and this happens, this is a question I ask everybody, so don't feel special, okay? But is it something where you would have done something differently, or was there another way to do this? Because it seems that so many of the de-SPAC companies have been beaten up in the market, worse than maybe those that didn't go public. Of course, we don't see their financials, so we don't really know what's happening, do we? Any thoughts there that you can share?
I think what's important to focus on is we took our company public. The instrument set aside, it helped us raise over $600 million of capital, which was essential for us to make the kind of investments that I've just described to you, like our Powered One facility and the relationship with LG. So for us, that's really what we focused on. Our investor community is an important community to us, and we just want to continue to invest in the growth of the company. How we got to where we got to, we're comfortable with the process so far.
Okay, well, that's fair. I don't expect any rending of clothing or anything like that on these decisions. It's just interesting as we look back and we've seen that, those that, chose that particular path seem to be having a little bit harder time. It's interesting. I watch your stock price. I don't know why I have it on my list, but I do. And I don't think I've seen a stock that bounces around as much as yours does. And I know you have nothing to do with the stock price, at least not directly. Why is that? Why are we seeing that?
Well, I think as far as the investor markets go, that's something I'm not going to comment on at this point. But what I will tell you is that our focus is on delivering high quality products for our customers. You were at the ACT show. You saw that our brand is gaining in credibility and applicability in products like Daimler's products, as you mentioned, the Blue Arc, Volta's truck, Lightning Motors, the Nikola truck. We just want to make sure we continue to lead the industry with bringing transformative products to the market, because the mission, as I started out by saying, for us is what's really important. We want to make sure that we make an outsized impact on our environment by bringing the right products to market for commercial vehicles to electrify their powertrains.
I did get to see, by the way, your product at the Nikola plant. There was a pallet of them waiting for, I believe, the fuel cell product, which is now coming into production in the fourth quarter at Nikola. When you signed on, you became kind of their second battery supplier. I mean, the Romeo story is for another day, but obviously, coming in there, assuming they can make it, and again, no guarantees there, but looks like you're in for the partnership on that one for sure.
That's right. We're very excited to deliver to them batteries for both.
It was good to see your product there, and also to hear, as I said at the top of the show, about some of the real positive comments that we get on the customers are happy with what they're getting. And I guess just to sort of close out, you want to root for companies that have something like you've got going, right? I mean, you want to root for them to succeed. Obviously, having that line into the President's Export Council, all these things seem to go together in some way to tell a positive story, and one that you just sort of hope can make it through, some of the tougher markets that we have right now in terms of capital raising. But, things are starting to turn, maybe, we hope, right?
Well, we certainly are very enthusiastic about what's going on in the market, and thank you for your support. I appreciate that too. As we discussed throughout the show, the demand in the market is healthy. We've seen a product that's needed already being adopted by various companies, but the policy framework has been very supportive over the past 24 months to really, as I say, just give it that extra shot in the arm to make sure that this transformation is durable and sustainable. And so we really have a very bullish perspective on the future of battery electric power for commercial vehicles, and we're also excited to be playing such an important role in that transformation.
Well, Gareth, this has been wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you. We wish you the best, and I look forward to my visit to the plant in Greer later this month.
We look forward to having you there, and thanks for having me on the show again.
Okay. All right, folks, next week you get, as they said in Toy Story, double prizes. You get our regular Wednesday show where our scheduled guest is Mujib Ijaz from One, that's our Next Energy, yet another battery maker, one in that lithium iron phosphate space. We'll talk with Mujib. And then on Thursday, we'll be in Cleveland for the FreightWaves Future of Supply Chain, where a couple of our guests will be Volterra and also Torque Robotics. So on the one story, of course, you have to think, for those of you old enough to know about Three Dog Night Story 1, it is definitely not the loneliest number. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.